first off, we have Myles Wright from Indiana. So some people use rubber ducks, some people use their cats. Myles uses 50 chickens so to help him with his coding, but he's going to be walking through some of what he does day to day. He's from Lippert Component, so give him a warm welcome and introduce you to Myles.
Hello, everyone. Real excited to be here. It's my first time in New York, so big deal for me. As he was saying, I'm an integration developer from Lippert. I work on full stack applications, and I'm just going to be going over what I do day to day in my job. So this is a product management through an external API application. And so essentially what I do is I make sure that the product data is automated and gets from our product management systems onto our online store through APIs. And we do use Magento 2 for our flagship sites to get this done. So our flagship website is right here. And I show it off to anyone that I can. I'm really proud of it that I have a hand in making it possible. So Lippert Components, we are a leading global manufacturer and supplier of recreational vehicle components. We're also in the marine, automotive, and commercial vehicle and building products industry. So we do windows, interiors like mattresses, couches, things like that. We were founded nearly 70 years ago, and we grew to incorporate RV, towing, truck accessories, housing, a bunch of stuff. We have over 12,000 employees across 140 facilities in 22 states and 11 countries around the world, and we have over 25 brands under our umbrella. LCII is a small cap stock. We are listed in the S&P 600 with almost $4 billion in revenue yearly. But that isn't what I'm most proud of. I am most proud of our company culture. Our main value is business as a force for good, which enables me to do things like this, to be here to present to you all and help other people. So, first off, why should we use a third-party integration for our user experience and to automate product data? Well, every merchant is the same, or every merchant is different. So you may be thinking, there are so many great PIMs out there that can get the job done. Why should I do it myself? Why should I build in-house? There are a lot of reasons. Every business has its unique needs and processes, and PIMs out-of-the-box integration tools may not work for everyone. Some examples of this may include shared catalogs, attributes, as well as a very important one, product images, which we're going to go over a lot today. That, PIMs may not have that functionality that you need out of the box. Apologies, 1 second. Okay. So, why do we want to build Okay, so we have some benefits of a custom integration here. They're highly scalable. And when we talk about highly scalable custom integrations, we want to think of future-proofing. So we want these integrations to last into the future, have the ability to be updated as necessary, and implement a variety of functionality, and we won't be limited by a different dev team. You don't want to put all of your issues, all of your bugs into the backlog and be waiting on a different dev team to get them done. It is much better to build in-house so that your dev team can get it done in a better amount of time. And so we can also implement any functionality, and we're not limited by a different dev team. And we can build any need-only features. And what this means is if you don't need it, you don't have to build it, and that's better. For our application framework, we use Laravel, and we do this for a few different reasons. It's one of the most well-known and popular PHP frameworks. Just about everyone knows this, but it gives us all of the features that we need for full stack applications. Laravel also offers plenty of tools and packages, so it's really a no-brainer to use. Now, you don't have to use Laravel. This is just what we use. It was best suited for us. There's plenty of other frameworks out there that you can use. Now, we won't go over every single aspect of a third-party integration today. There's a lot to go over. So what we're going to do today is just go over the building blocks so that you can go out there and have what you need to start on this on your own and kind of get an idea of the basic what you will need. Because, as I said, every merchant is different, and you will need something that I don't need, and I will need something that you don't need. So here's an overview of the workflow and what we'll kind of be diving into today. These aspects are all essential to have a working integration that communicates with all the parties involved. First is the database. You have to have a database for product version management, and we take necessary data from our enterprise resource planning system, our ERP, and we send it back to our PIM so that we have accurate pricing, dimensions, shipping weights, things like that. And then our integration sends all of that information to Magento 2 through the APIs. And then we also take the data back from Magento 2 so that we can validate the information so that it will be correct, so to say. And then after that, we'll be going over product image management. It may seem a little odd that I'm going to focus so heavily on this, but we just revitalized our product image management process, and I was very surprised to find that, well, I'd gotten myself into a rabbit hole with this one, and it really made me focus on how I could improve the process, understand best practices, and how to make things run more smoothly. Now, we aren't getting into anything over the top. We're not going to be doing any parallel processing, nothing like that. It's all still going to be linear. But we are going to go over a really good and useful, testable process for managing images. So this is the database setup for product data. You can see here this is an actual screenshot from our database setup. We have the Magento ID, that's pretty self-explanatory. We have our PIM ID, this is important as well. The raw data. Our raw data is what comes in from the PIM. That is very important that we have on hand because we can check it with our clean data, and that's the data that's been formatted for Magento 2. The Magento product data, that one, as you can see up there, is the data that we pull back in from Magento 2 to validate and check any data. We also have PIM version, the created at, updated at, the Magento ID, pretty basic, necessary things. Now, there are a few different ways that you can get data from the PIM, but for the sake of our stakeholders, we chose a data export feed that publishes on a 4-hour schedule and in JSON format. The reason we did this is so that they can better plan releases. When they want to plan product releases, product updates, things like that, they can plan it in advance. You can also publish product data, event-driven, but you lose some ability for your stakeholders or your catalog management team to plan that in advance. They kind of have to do it right on the spot. There are other ways around that, but for the sake of our time, our developers' time, our stakeholders' time, we decided to go with the JSON format, and this is an actual screenshot of what that data looks like. It comes in a big sheet, and then our application chunks it out into individual parts and then pulls that information into the raw data. Now, how do we access attributes once this product data is in the database? It's really simple. Laravel makes it very easy. We can just use an arrow operator. This right here is a Tinker shell. It is a read eval print loop, if you don't know what Tinker is. It's very useful. Essentially, it lets us run code on the application in real time. This is a separate application I use called Tinkerwell. It is very, very, very useful. You can use SSH configurations on it to access remote servers, as well as test it locally with things like Docker. Very, very good tool. I use it every day. It's really good for finding bugs. It's really good for testing. I highly recommend that you use Tinker and that you use something like Tinkerwell. There's other options for that as well. So next is formatting the product data for Magento 2. This part is actually easier than it sounds. Magento has very good documentation that I read probably once a week on doing this to make sure that I have my ducks in a row here. Once you know how to access the attributes for a product, you can create a service method that gets the raw data into what we call clean data. And you can see that in this function up here, that it is essentially using the arrow operator and the get to get that JSON data in for each attribute that we need. And then in the middle, you can see a screenshot I have of the Magento docs for a product API and what is required, what is not. And if you need to find it, I will have links at the end for everything that I'm mentioning. So publishing products, now we're going to use the Magento 2 REST API. We are taking the endpoint for creating a product, getting this necessary information, that clean data, and we keep the clean data in the database so that it's always accessible. We want it accessible at all times so that if there's ever an update, we can just grab it. And then we send it out. And then Magento responds and we can log any errors. Like if you get like a 400 error or something ridiculous, you can log it and know what you need to do to go back and kind of fix it. For authentication, you can see that we are creating a client up there. We use OAuth 2.0, which is another rabbit hole. I could probably do a whole nother talk on it, so I won't go down that today. But Magento also has really good documentation on OAuth 2. And in terms of using it with Laravel, it does take a little extra work, but it is possible to get up and working. So now we're going to go over the importance of queues. So in this Laravel application, we use queues when publishing data. And we also use it with indexing pricing and shipping dimensions, things like that. And so this is so we don't overload the application's memory. That would be really bad if you just sent like 1,000 API requests at once, and then your application runs out of memory, and you're like, well, oops. So we use queues, and you can see up here there's queues for Elasticsearch, publishing, indexing, a bunch of stuff. We use it for literally everything. It's really useful. Laravel's built-in queue system is called Horizon. It's pretty simple to set up. Laravel has really good documentation on that as well. And so now we're going to go into product images. So the reason why I chose a good portion of this for product images is that it's the front of the company. When a user goes to your e-commerce website, the first thing they see is your product images. This is a PDP page for one of our products, our tailor-made boat cover. So when a user goes here, they want to be able to see, the necessary product images. It needs to be correct. It needs to be up to date. And before we redid our product image management process, we were having tons of issues. It was bad. We were having duplicated images, missing thumbnails. Sometimes a thumbnail would be there, you'd click on it, and then it would say product image coming soon. It was a little ridiculous. But it's fixed now with a better process. We also added functionality to add videos to our image galleries. Beforehand, they were in the product description, so a user, in order to see a video, had to scroll down through the product description page to find those videos, and it wasn't very good, so we improved it. You will need another database table for this. The most important things that I'll go over, most of these are self-explanatory, but you can see the optimized URL. I think that's about the 5th one down. That's very important. It's a shortened URL, which is really good to use for checking if images are correct. and sending it through to the Magento 2 API. You don't want a really bogus long URL. That's not good. The position, that is just the position in the media gallery. Starts at 0, ends at however many images you have. And that's really important because if there's an issue, you can say there's an issue with this image at this position. And if there's an error, you can kind of like move the position over. Before, the position was just dependent on the order of the images in the database for any given product, and that's not really a good way to do it. You want a set position, and our catalog team can easily switch the positions of images if needed. Then the Magento ID. We pull this into our database once we update an image or create an image so that we can cross-reference it later. That's very important. That is probably the crux of this whole image management process. So there are a few different scenarios that can happen in an image gallery. Any and all of these scenarios can happen at once. So we have an image is created, an image is deleted, an image is updated, and the position changes. And an important note for the image is updated, with some PIMs, if the image file is changed, the URL might not change. And so we have a solution for that. We will get into how that works. So first, we want to run image deletions. You always want to run this first before any updates or creations. And so what we do is we pull the list of media gallery entries from Magento 2, and we cross-reference it with what we have in our Laravel application. So we take that Magento image ID, and we say, is it in the list of what we have incoming? And if it isn't, we delete it. It's as simple as that. And if that image ID does exist in our incoming images, we move on to this step, where we loop through the incoming images again, and depending on this criteria, we will either create the image or update the image. If the image does not have a Magento ID. So like if it's brand new, it doesn't have a Magento ID in that database column, we will create it. If it does have an ID, we move on to check if it needs updated. And this is where things get a little bit more interesting. There are a few different ways you can verify an image or check if it needs to be updated. You can either hash out the data, or you can use visual image comparison. I spent a long time weighing these two options and trying to find a solution to try to hash it out, because honestly, the hashing was easier. I could just run it through a SHA-256 function and then have that output, compare equality, and move on with my life. But it wasn't working. I would have two images that were exactly the same, and they would not have the same hash value. And I found out it was because of the metadata. Now, the metadata, or the data about the data, things like time created, time updated, things like that, that gets pulled into the hash function as well. So you can have two identical images appear to be completely different. So we started to move to visual image comparison. And for this, we use Image Magic. It is a PHP library for visual image comparison, and you can see that up here with the little cute handbags in this example, one has a little cat poking out at top, the other one doesn't. There's a few other little changes, and you can see that those two are being compared, and the red is the differences that Image Magic finds in those images. And you can see here I have ran the image comparison between those two images right there and outputted it, and it gives you an output of an array. The first spot in the array is that image with the red. So you could save that to your database, and then you can pull it, and you can look at it and see, hey, these are the same. If there's no red, they're the same. The second value there is a mean absolute error value. It is a decimal point value. If it's 0, every single pixel is the same. And if every single pixel isn't the same, there's going to be a number there. But we find that if the value is greater than 0.01, the images are different. So if that value is greater than 0.01, we go ahead and we update the image. And so basically after this, all we do is check to see if the position has changed, if the position has not changed, no updates are made. It's pretty much that simple. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Here we talked about product management. We went through the database setup, the incoming data from the PIM, formatting the data, sending it through the API, processing the data in the application, and then we went over product image management, the database setup for that, the scenarios that you can encounter with that, and how to manage that. So thank you for having me here. I was very excited for my first time in New York. And if you need this, scan this. There are some links that you can follow for all of the documentation that I use on a daily basis. And with that, I think we can open it up for some questions.
All right. It's always great hearing how people go about what they're doing and the new approaches that people do it. So Myles will be out in the lobby for questions. And with that, thank you, Myles. It's fantastic.
Thank you.